Hello buddy, it's Wyvern here, back with a short little video just to discuss the exciting news today, the Trial by Fire trailer for Total War Warhammer 3. Obviously, already leaked. CA's been leakier than the Titanic as of late, and there's been a lot of reveals, most likely unintentional. Hopefully most of that will be confirmed or expanded upon in the coming days as we get some proper gameplay footage for Total War Warhammer 3. But yeah, the Trial by Fire trailer, a pretty exciting bit of in-game footage or in-game engine footage, not necessarily in what you might be seeing in-game, but using hopefully the in-game models we'll be seeing in Warhammer 3, and a pretty sort of high-octane trailer. Gives us some peeks at what we might be seeing with units, as well as the plot, perhaps, or the story for Warhammer 3. So, without further ado, guys, let's hop right in. We're going to watch the trailer, and then just discuss what we're seeing here, and discuss what it could entail for Warhammer 3.
Key slave. The motherland has turned her back on us. Exiled to a wasted land. Brothers and sisters betrayed. Whilst the meek cling to power. Is it just? To be the bulwark the world relies on? Does it make us weak? To witness endless loss? Do we falter? Molded by it. Forged hot against an anvil of ice. Rage consumes us. But from the fire, we rise again.
So, some pretty exciting stuff. A pretty intense trailer. I definitely did enjoy sort of the slowly corrupted narration there, going from sort of a normal-ish Kislevite to just this insane blood for the blood god at the end. Straight up Cornate Berserker. But very neat trailer. Not necessarily my favorite, mostly because I'm probably a sucker for the comedic effects that you get, obviously, in many of the DLC trailers, and of course the Vampire Coast trailer was just splendid. But still, an excellent trailer, and I think it does highlight quite a bit of what we might be able to expect, both on the campaign side as well as on the unit sort of roster side of things that hasn't necessarily been revealed before, certainly not in the initial cinematic trailer. So first and foremost, suppose. Of course, the Brass Citadel of Khorne. Highlighted here, we did get to see the Brass Citadel as well as Khorne himself sort of leering over top of the poor Kislevite there with his bear. So, well, Chaos Wastes are likely an addition in one form or another. Obviously, Warhammer 3 is going to focus a lot on the Darklands. We already kind of knew this. Obviously, it has to focus on Kislev, the Maw, and Cathay. So it covers an incredible expanse of territory already. Throw in the Chaos Wastes in the far north on top of that, and you're looking at some pretty insane sort of geographic coverage there. I'm not entirely sure if the Chaos Wastes are actually going to be a fully fleshed out territory, or if it's sort of going to be a sort of a limited starting point, and maybe you have some quest battles you can activate by entering the Chaos, quote-unquote Chaos Wastes, or if it's going to be a properly expanded upon territory. Regardless, though, whatever the case may be, definitely going to be cool to see. Not just what we're getting, like the Brass Citadel here for Khorne. Obviously, that's awesome. Just getting some representation for the Chaos Gods here, but also going to be interesting to see what we get for the other Chaos Gods as well, and just how their territories might be represented in Warhammer 3, because of course the Chaos is supposed to be divided. Chaos is going to be coming in as 4 separate demonic factions, so it will be interesting to see just how much coverage there might be, and what all the unique territories and scenery might look like for these factions. Obviously, a lot of blood and fire and skulls and spikes for Khorne, but just how detailed might, for example, Slaanesh or Tzeentch or Nurgle, sort of Nurgle Corrupted Gardens or whatever it might be, look. So definitely going to be interesting to see on the campaign side. The other thing I think we get at least a little implied here is that there might be some sort of, as far as I'm aware and as far as I've seen, the character narrating here isn't any named character. So what I'm getting from that is that we might get some sort of corruption mechanic, and hopefully not in the sort of meh wave we've had corruption up until now, where it's just sort of a additional malice you suffer that reduces your replenishment rate and reduces your public order, but perhaps some sort of corruption of characters and corruption of lords. Maybe something that lets you, especially if you're playing as, for example, perhaps one of the Kislevite sub-factions, perhaps lets you choose which side you're going to be taking, or lets you sort of navigate the conflict between Chaos and the factions of Order in a more independent manner, where rather than simply being set up, oh, you have to be the Bulwark of the North, maybe you've got a mechanic where you can slowly tilt one way or another, perhaps sort of like Malice Darkblade, perhaps, where Malice obviously can go full insane demon mode, but otherwise you can, and that comes with its own benefits for him, but also downsides globally. So who knows? Perhaps we'll be seeing some sort of corruption mechanic. Perhaps you'll be able to. Perhaps you'll find yourself losing access to certain Kislevite units and getting a more of an increasingly mixed roster. Perhaps you start with Kislevite. If you start with Kislev, you start with Kislevite elites and normal Kislevite cheap trash units. But then as a campaign progresses, maybe you'll start getting access to the servants of your, whatever chosen god you have, while at the same time losing access to Kislevite units, especially the elites. Obviously, that's pure speculation at the moment. I'm not sure about any of that at all, but I just felt like the trailer here definitely heavily implies some sort of corruption theme going on. Obviously, that's the entire struggle with Chaos. It's as much an internal struggle as it is an external one, and so it would definitely be cool to see that implemented in some manner. Of course, on top of that, we've also got a glimpse of multiple different units, especially as we progress into the later stages of the trailer here, where we've got our little battle scene. Of course, we're seeing good old bloodletters, or blood crushers, I should say, riding atop their juggernauts, followed by a variety of Khorne berserkers. if in the trailer did include at least a handful, it appeared, of weapon variants for these Cornate Berserkers, or the Cornate Chosen, perhaps, including the dual-wielding axes, as well as what appeared to be either a halberd or great weapon at one point. So definitely can expect to see some unit variety for Khorne. Of course, Chaos Furies take to the skies, and most likely a unit much akin to Harpies, but customized based on whatever lord they have. Chaos Warhounds, of course, making an appearance. Not exactly surprising. What Chaos Army are you running if you don't even have some doggos in there? But, of course, Bloodletters. Of course, Chaos Berserkers there. And, of course, everybody's favorite scene at the end, seeing the good old Bloodthirster descending from the skies and coming in ready to lay down the law here against the giant Spirit Bear. So what we also did get to see here is that the Bloodthirster came on from the sky. Now, well, first of all, Bloodthirster was probably a unit where we might be looking at the most expensive unit, besides perhaps the Dread Saurian, in all of Warhammer. Total War Warhammer here. So the Bloodthirster, of course, was a top tier melee combatant in the tabletop game. It's supposed to be sort of a top tier monstrosity in lore as well, and very few things, perhaps Star Dragons and Dread Saurians, are really on a power level to contest. And obviously heroes, because how else do you pad out a hero's power level by showing that they beat a Bloodthirster? But there's very little in the Warhammer universe that can actually go toe-to-toe with a Bloodthirster. So definitely we're probably going to be looking at an expensive unit here. And what's interesting is that we did see him flying into combat. Now, some people have already speculated that this might mean we're going to see a rework of the flight system. I personally would like to see, also just because I obviously retain hopes for some sort of Warhammer 40k game, not necessarily tit for tat a Total War game, but something utilizing some of the Total War engine perhaps, or utilizing some elements of Total War to represent 40k in the future. So I could see the winged characters, such as the Bloodthirsters, and ultimately perhaps we'll be seeing Valkia the Bloody, and obviously old school flying characters, or flightless winged characters like Malagor, perhaps getting his sort of jump ability. It might look a little awkward to just see them flying around and just floating in the air, but getting something more along the lines of a big old leap, sort of like a jetpack jump in Dawn of War 2 or something, might also be a possibility. Something that lets you take your big single entity and just jump into combat, or maybe jump out of combat and be super flexible with what's otherwise a somewhat slower ground-bound character. Regardless whether or not we're actually going to see our winged friends fly for real, or if we're going to see them careening in like a assault marine, I think it would be nice to see at least some sort of rework to acknowledge that these characters had flight on tabletop, were intended to be able to fly on tabletop, and it would be kind of really a pity if, for example, Valkia or a Bloodthirster, or obviously a reworked Lord of Change or such units just weren't able to fly. There's a lot of these niche winged units that it would just be sad to see them not fly. Now for Kislev, we also did get some glimpses of some units. Obviously the big old Ice Bear was the big highlight here. Now whether it's supposed to be a summon or a unit is a bit debatable. I don't believe CA has ever had a, besides I guess the closest thing I can think of in the campaign is like Scythen is the Sister's Dragon is a summon in campaign battles, but generally CA doesn't like to have giant, amazing, like big top tier monstrous creatures be a summon. So I would assume it's going to be sort of the core, or sort of the not core unit, but the big selling point unit for Kislev, or sort of their big highlight unit, and would assume it's going to be something in sort of the same category as the Steam Tank or Star Dragon. I cannot see it going toe to toe with. Obviously, the trailer shows something else, but obviously, I can't see it going toe to toe with a Bloodthirster in actual gameplay, just because Bloodthirsters are supposed to be so insane. But certainly, it's probably going to be the sort of centerpiece unit for Kislev. What I will say is that while it does look cool aesthetically, I'm kind of disappointed actually by the decision to sort of go and give Kislev like this big old juggernaut unit. Thematically, I've never felt Kislev, especially in lore, comes across as sort of... they're a faction much like Empire or Bretonnia, where they might have sort of... And in many ways, they're perhaps even less fantastical than either Empire or Bretonnia. They're a faction of humans, and they're repelling the hordes of hell without sort of big old monstrosities of their own. It's much more of a raw courage, determination, discipline sort of situation. It's much like how Empire, and obviously Empire does get a steam tank, but I just feel like it's a little out of character for Kislev. I do know that in lore, and especially in the role-playing Warhammer Fantasy role-playing game, Kislev had a variety of sort of nature spirits, and these sorts of smaller animals. The land itself essentially the people had a connection with the land itself, and the land itself would potentially sort of rise up to aid them. I do believe the lore of hags as well, because Kislev did have the lore of ice, which we've already seen some tidbits of here and there. But I also do believe that in fantasy there was a lore of hags, or in the fantasy role-playing game there was a lore of hags, which I do believe had some interactions with sort of the nature spirits that are supposedly involved in Kislev. But I never got the impression that it was something sort of super monstrous and big. You're not getting a Dreadsaurian-sized bear out of these nature spirits. It's something more small and subtle. And I think a better representation earlier in the trailer actually was the charge of the Winged Lancers here. Perhaps it's supposed to be Griffin Legion. But we do see this little... I'm not entirely sure if it's... On one hand, I thought it was supposed to be like a snow leopard. On the other hand, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a wolf. Some of the animations almost look the same, and certainly the head looks somewhat wolf-like here, with a somewhat extended muzzle there. Not entirely sure if it's supposed to be a wolf or a leopard. I feel like it's probably a leopard, just because they don't want to give them wolves just like Norska has, but you never know. But I feel like this is a more appropriate sort of quote-unquote spirit animal for Kislev to get. Not saying it's not cool to see a giant bear made of ice and dirt rising up and basically being like a Kislevite rogue idol, but it just feels it just feels unnatural, or sort of an odd way to take Kislev when, much like Empire or Bretonnia, they don't feel like a faction that really centers around big monsters. That isn't supposed to be their thing, really. But regardless, still cool to see. Obviously, the snow leopard here does look interesting. It'll be curious to see what exactly it provides for the faction. If it's just sort of as fast as single entity, if it's a summon of some sort. As you can see, there's only one here. Obviously, this only uses in-game engine footage, so perhaps it's actually a unit in actual games. But we'll definitely see. We also did see that the forces of Khorne do have some gunfire and some artillery pieces. We saw them blowing up Kislevite infantry, and it'll be curious to see what I would assume it's supposed to be skull cannons, some skull cannons of Khorne. It could be perhaps there's going to be some new artillery pieces implemented as well. Obviously, baseline, the demonic factions don't necessarily have enough for a full roster by Total Warhammer standards, so perhaps they'll be fleshed out and be given new artillery pieces. But I would assume we're going to be seeing the skull cannons of Khorne, which would be pretty neat. It'll be cool to have like an artillery piece mounted on top of a chariot. Should give them some limited range presence without sort of overwhelming the core features of Khorne. Obviously, I also assume there might be some Marauders thrown into the mix. They weren't shown in the trailer, but I would assume that we might be seeing some Marauders as well, and those might flesh out the missing ranged elements in Khorne's army. But we definitely saw some cool units. Also did see a little bit more of the Ice Guard getting smashed entirely by Chosen in close quarters, because that's not good for your health, trying to duel a Chosen. But yeah, and here we can see what appears to be a Khornate chosen with the halberd, but either way, it does give us an idea of what we could be expecting. And of course, we did see the bears, but it gives us an idea of what we can expect from the Kislevites roster. Some sizable single entities, the giant puller, sort of rogue idol the bear, snow leopards, of course. And then of course the human elements that we've already seen. Perhaps given that they are supposed to have some halberds, as well as their magic ice bows, perhaps the Ice Guard will be more akin to to the Sisters of Avalorn, or perhaps like a souped up version of Lothran Seaguard. I kind of doubt they're going to get both AP on the bows and on the melee, but you never know. I just find it unlikely that both of them would be AP, especially because Kislev does have gunpowder for the AP element, unlike, say, High Elves, who do not have that. But it'll definitely be interesting to see how exactly that Kislevite army pans out. And interesting to see where Khorne ends up here. Because certainly we saw a lot of units. We saw those Furies, we saw those Chosen, we saw the Blood Crushers, Bloodthirsters, Bloodletters. Basically most of the tabletop roster essentially was shown, so it'll be curious to see how exactly they get fleshed out in the future, and perhaps we'll be seeing more of that in the gameplay reveals in the upcoming days. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Hopefully you did find it a little informative or a little speculative. Let me know what you thought of the trailer and what you might be what you're thinking about the upcoming game as well. Let me know what you think we can expect, what changes you're hoping for, what I might have missed in the trailer that you think is worth mentioning. Just let me know down in the comments below. Respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.